human alien hybrids exist? Many of us have heard about these creatures that are created on the aboard aircraft, but what's their goal? All right, I'm starting over because it's that dyslexic thing. I need to talk slower. Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you for tuning in to this week's Just Energy TV. Do human alien hybrids exist? Many of us have heard about these creatures that are created aboard alien aircraft. What's their goal or mission is a mystery. But are some of these hybrids walking around among us that do not recall their extraterrestrial origin? To help us dig into this mystery, we're going to be speaking with Miguel Mendonça. He is the author of the new book, Meet the Hybrids. And let me tell you a little bit about him. Miguel is a writer based in Bristol, England. He has gained an honors degree in geography and history and studied social sciences and environmental ethics at postgraduate levels. Miguel studied and worked in sustainability field for 10 years, becoming an authority on renewable energy policy. While serving as a research manager for an international NGO, he wrote textbooks, book chapters, articles, papers, and studies providing an evidence base for campaigners around the world to push for better renewable energy laws in their jurisdictions. He lectures internationally and works with campaigners from NGOs, politics, finance, industry, and civil society on coalition building and strategy. Miguel now writes fiction and nonfiction on ufology, politics, relationships, spirituality, and consciousness. So please welcome Miguel Mendonça. Hey, Miguel, how are you?
Hi, good. Thank you, Rita.
Well, that is quite a change from working on sustainability to writing about alien hybrids. What brought that change about in you?
Well, I'm going to try to give you the shortest version I can.
Okay.
I was always interested in ETs, UFOs from a very early age. I seem to recall my father giving me a book on UFOs when I was probably 6 or 7 years of age, and then Star Wars happened, which he took me to. So that's it. I was off and running. It was actually when you first read A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away, and then you see something that seems to be happening in the future. I mean, that has an effect on the consciousness of a young person. And I maintained my interests. Then in 2009, I was on vacation with my partner, staying in my parents' cottage in Graciosa Island, where my father was born, and we see this light tracking across the sky that, as far as we were concerned, was a satellite, and then the thing just starts to massively increase in size and luminosity, and then decreased and carried tracking along, and we're thinking, well, you know, what the hell's that thing? Is that just light reflecting off something? And then the thing does it again, and it gets bigger this time, and then it sort of almost pauses, and then I just thought, oh my God, here it goes, and it just went, pew! I mean, you know, streak of light thousands of miles long across the sky, and you think, well, that's a spaceship. I mean, there's nothing else that does that. Nature doesn't do that. So thereafter, I was writing fiction. I was writing a novel about truth, and one of the characters started to give me this suggestion, in the way that characters do, that he had something to do with black projects. So in order to give him a little bit of backstory, I thought, well, you know, I'll see what information's out there on ufology and all that now. Black projects, Area 51, and here we are. That novel vanished. I started writing another one, which basically tried to create a framework into which all the different pieces of the story of ufology could fit. And then I discovered through Barbara Lamb's lectures the subject of hybrids, and I had an immediate connection. I felt, and I still can't explain this, I felt overwhelmingly protective towards them. And I don't know why. I don't know why. So I wrote some hybrids into this novel, and then I thought, well, I'll take a chance and see if Barbara is the kind of personality, the kind of character that actually responds to inquiries out of the blue. And happily, she was just such a person. And she said, well, I'm crazy busy now, but let's put something in the diary for next year. So this was like 3 months later. And I thought, well, is that a polite way of blowing someone off, or what is that? I thought, well, I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to sit here patiently for 3 months, and then we'll talk. The first conversation, when I said, hi, how are you doing? She said, fine. I've just come from a meeting in Arizona with a group of hybrids and experiencers and regular people who are talking about how we can bring this information out to the world at large. And it just must have switched on all of these kind of circuits, lights and dials in the back of my head. Overnight, I must have processed like crazy. I woke up, I wrote 8 pages of notes in my journal. I spent a week turning that into a discussion paper, sent that to Barbara. So these are my thoughts on this whole idea of hybrids wanting to share their story with the world. And one of the key things in that paper was that they had some control over the discourse, that they could tell their story rather than have some kind of, I mean, we've all seen what the wrong film crew will do to people in this field. They just make mincemeat out of them. And I thought, that is not happening, not on my watch. So I put it to Barbara at the end of that discussion. What do you think about the idea of doing a book? And here we are. It worked out. And as we speak, I know this is going to go out at a different time, but as you and I are talking now, in about an hour or so, the hybrids, 6 of the hybrids from the book, are going to join Barbara on stage for her lecture at the International UFO Congress.
Cool.
And as far as I am aware, that has never happened. This is actually something of a historic occasion, and we don't know what's going to come out of that. I know there's going to be all the right kind of people there. I think there will be interesting discussions. David Jacobs will be there, and I know some of the hybrids are keen to talk to him because he has his view on what the hybrid subject is all about, and they have a different view. Their reality is very different, it seems. So who knows? I mean, as of right now, that's all up in the air. I mean, you know, you might even, when this does go out live, I'll let you know what happened, and we could even tag in a postscript. Who knows?
Okay, sounds great. And I'm a little confused, and I really don't mean to be dismissive, but there are really people walking around that say they're human alien hybrids. And from your scope of the world, what do you think about that?
Oh man, that's such a big question.
Sorry.
It really is. And one of the reasons I'm keen to have this kind of conversation is that I'm interested because, you know, I sent you a copy of the book and you would have read at least some of that. So
quite a bit of it.
I'd be interested to kind of kick that around a bit because I'm still trying to figure out what I make of it, because there's at least one moment every day that I'll remember something that happened last year during all of that research, the sort of 8-9 month period, or even conversations since and emails and so forth, because I keep in touch with all these guys, and I think, come on. This is crazy. I have moments where I've been on Skype with them, and there's a voice in my head that says, Miguel, just ask them, just say, are you really a hybrid? I mean, for real, are you really a hybrid? I mean, I won't tell anyone, just be between us. But, because, yeah, all of that happens, and that's been entirely candid. And I think that most of where that comes from is our culture basically says, no, it's impossible. Einstein said, blah, 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 speed of light, they couldn't get here, etc. So they've got to be lying, crazy, or deluded, or all three. Are they lying? Well, I mentioned that the novel I wrote was about truth. So I was researching that for a certain period of time. Lying, lie spotting, deception, the reason people lie, body language, all of that stuff. And just in general, I would hope that I'm a reasonably savvy person and would have a sense of when I'm being lied to, when, for whatever reason, someone is trying to mislead me about something, and I've never seen that in them. Part of that is consistency. They always say the same things, or they never deviate in terms of where they're coming from. They don't have the energy of liars. Lying takes a great deal of energy, and when I'm talking to these people, they are very relaxed. It isn't like that. You're not seeing leakage. You're not seeing signs that they are uncomfortable. It is not leaking out in their body language, in their hands, in their mannerisms, things like that. So I don't think they're lying. Could they be deluded? I would think to be deluded about something like that, that would have some material impact in your life. These people all have driving licenses, as far as I'm aware. I mean, if you thought these people would be deluded, oh my God, these people shouldn't be on the road. You know what I'm saying? Are there any other ways in which this could not be true? If they're not lying or deluded, I don't know. I don't get a sense of major mental health issues from them at all. I feel like they are just as strong and fragile as all of us. Yeah? They seem, but there is one way in which there is a major difference with these people, and that is that I have a particular energetic interaction with them or response to them. I've realized that I'm actually going to have to be kind of careful about this, because the longer I talk to them, particularly Robert Fullington and Juju, or Jojali Cuter, when I talk to those guys, my energy spikes like crazy to the point where it's like oh my God, it's like the top half of my body, every cell in my body is effervescing or is accelerating. And when the first time I really noticed this was when we were doing an interview, Barbara, myself, Juju, and I started to feel this below my elbows, so my forearms, my hands. It's like they were just pulsating, but it was just extraordinary. I have felt that before at one period in my life, but not in conversation with people. And as I was looking down, and my hands would have kind of almost been, off camera sort of thing. But Juju happened to mention, Miguel, you have really strong aura in your hands. And I thought, what? You can see that? How is that possible? I mean, that is the moment where I feel like I crossed the threshold, where I had to admit to myself that this thing might actually be legitimate. Not that. And in that moment, you realize that you have a lot more doubt than you thought you did. And part of it is that I don't want to believe in anything that isn't true. I want to understand reality in the best way I possibly can. I want to understand the whole thing. How does this work? What is this? Who's here? What am I supposed to be doing? Like, I feel like if I really understood reality, I would kind of know better how to spend my time, if you know what I mean. I'd know better what to do, and how to behave, what to strive for, etc. I mean, I feel like I have a pretty good handle on that these days. I feel like I, as they say, follow your bliss. Follow the thing that gives you energy. Anything that is taking more energy than it's giving is probably the wrong thing to be doing, for me. So
let me just share my experience. Okay, so I've never met somebody that claimed to be a current hybrid, and I've never said this on air, so this is new material for people. But I mean, I work as a medical intuitive and do psychic work and have for years. I have done work, but it's been more on a soul level, and that's the way I'm going to say it, on a soul level with people, where they have had incarnations on the fairy realm. I've interacted with people that have had lifetimes on the earth, but not very many. Like, they've only incarnated here once or twice before, and so they're really uncomfortable interacting with people, and they don't like people because they don't know what to do with them. They don't understand like the social cues. I've had people that had cords to other races, like the Palladians. I've interacted with people that were definitely mantis. I mean, I'd be talking to them, the next thing I know, they got the little arm thing going on. I mean, but it's all like in my third eye, not, right. They didn't like transform, and I didn't see like their eyes like do the whole reptilian snaky thing, which would be kind of cool. But I haven't ever seen that. It just makes me wonder in myself, because that's been my experience. So I can't dismiss it in whole, but if they're just having, past life memories, that kind of soul contact with these groups. And I mean, and because one of the questions that I have, and maybe this would be a good place to bring it up, is has any genetic testing been done on these individuals?
Well, no, but during, I believe, Barbara's interview on Coast to Coast a few months ago, just let you kick the telephone across the room.
I just unplugged it.
Yeah, while she was on Coast to Coast, apparently somebody called in and said, I'd like to do a documentary and pay for everybody to be DNA tested. And it will be, the best DNA testing available. Now, they've all been getting ready for the UFO Congress, so I haven't dived into that discussion. But I have spoken to two of them on the subject. And Juju said, my take on this right from the beginning was that, two things. One is that, would our technology even know what to look for? And would it know it if it found it? Would it be able to identify that? Since, until very recently, people still use the term junk DNA a great deal. The stuff in there, they don't know what it is. Although the last time I checked with a geneticist, she said that junk idea is outdated. we actually do know what that stuff is now. So that's part of it. The other part of it is that, to me, this whole thing is not a material phenomenon, in the sense that that's not the focus of this. What the ETs are trying to get through to us, partly through the hybrids as their reps down here, bridges, ambassadors, is that the whole of existence is really a kind of, well, it's a spiritual journey. I can't think of a better way to say it. It's not a material journey. It's not how much stuff can we acquire and then chuck away and then acquire. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. The most useful thing that we can do is develop spiritually. I mean, you have to say that this week, Medvedev in Russia announced a new Cold War. He said that's exactly what's going on. And you'd think that if we had focused on spiritual development rather than material development, material acquisition, that press conference, whatever, that statement does not get issued. How do you have a war of that kind? Or how do you even think that stuff up if we are all trying to develop spiritually? And I think understand that we're all one.
Well, I think that the planet would be so different. I mean, because we started on a spiritual path, and then somewhere, and I'm going to say with the rise of civilization, that all changed. And we went into this whole material environment, and we've just been building on it and building on it and building on it.
Yeah, so, I mean, and we can all buy into that. That's how we keep warm. That's how we keep comfortable. That's how we keep.
I do like indoor plumbing.
Yeah, yeah. And in this country, this time of year, central heating, modern dentistry. There's some stuff I would not want to be without. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a 10-hour conversation, I think, the spiritual implications of this whole thing. But to answer your question, I feel like the DNA testing, in a sense, is a red herring. I would be as interested in anybody else in the results of that. But they're going to find a lot of human DNA, I've no doubt. But if somebody said, look, I know my guides, my star family have told me I'm 28% reptilian, and they find 28% DNA, they just say, we don't know what this is. Well,
but see, I would think that would be kind of confirming. I just interviewed Melanie Young about the Star Child skull, and they found some human DNA, and then they found this other group of DNA that they can't classify. Now, they don't know if it's because the skull is old and they're not really getting good samples because it's a 900-year-old skull. But if you have a living, breathing person and they have this chunk of DNA that don't fit anywhere, I think that would, and especially if you have several of them that have this weird DNA that doesn't fit, I think that would be pretty compelling.
I do, but I think that I think of meditation and Buddhism in a similar way, that you can pay just as much attention to what the hybrids are saying with or without the DNA.
Yes.
It's like you discover meditation. You say to a friend, oh my God, it's changing my life. It's the most amazing thing. And that person says, well, I want to see the data. I want to see a report that shows exactly what is happening to the brainwaves, what the implications of that are, and then we'll talk. Well, no, I mean, well, yeah, okay, you could go that way, or you could just try it and see what happens. And I feel like the information that's been shared by the hybrids has changed my life for the better. I've no doubt about it. in many ways, I feel like it's confirmed some things to me. It's opened some new avenues of thought, whether that's intellectual, philosophical, spiritual. They've impacted my life in many different ways. They make me see the world in a different way. And they've also, I feel, and this is kind of personal, it's kind of an interesting thing that's emerging. They have given me almost permission to explore my own identity in a wider sense.
And so is that kind of a message part of the book? I mean, because there's your experience, which is great, and but then there's obviously for the reader, do you feel like they're going to get that sense that they can take a step back and go, well, who am I really?
We have had some fantastic feedback so far, which is humbling and heartwarming and confirming in many ways. I said to Barbara when we were wrapping up the book, my God, if people get only 10% of what I've got out of this, their lives will change for the better. I've no doubt about it. And that feels really good. And we continue to get that feedback. Everybody has their own entry point to this. They have their lens through which they view all of this. Some will be more familiar with it. They will be ready. They will recognize some aspects of this and say, oh yes, I've kind of read those ideas before. I'm familiar with that. That's new. Other people, like my mother.
The best critic.
Yeah. What is her experience? I mean, my mother is somebody who is, in the nicest possible way, the squarest person I know. There's nothing alternative about my mother. Very, very, very grounded, which is extraordinarily helpful when you're going through this kind of process. And you want to speak to somebody who says, that's nice, dear, but it's just, not on the same wavelength. But so that helps in terms of pitching, trying to write this at a level where almost anybody can find an entry point. That's why the beginning part of it is a very gentle introduction. You're not hit over the head with ETs and dimensions right off the bat. I try to lead people into it through human culture first. Mm-hmm. What hybrids exist here? What is the definition, the function, the utility, etc., and begins to give us an idea as to how it might be that something that is not entirely human and is part something else might be useful.
We're here talking to Miguel Mendonça about his new book, Meet the Hybrids. And Miguel, one of the things that I'm curious, when you have talked to these individuals, what races come up? I mean, you mentioned reptilians. Are they primarily individuals who feel like they are connected to reptilians, or are more alien races part of their background?
I think at the last count there was roughly 15. One lady, Jacqueline Smith, has 7 what she calls ET frequencies, and so with human, I guess that's 8, including some I'd never heard of. One of them is the tall white Zetas. Matthew Thomas feels he's connected to the tall white Zetas. Also, the Syrians, the blue race. That's what he calls them. Then Vanessa Lamorte is connected to Syrians from Sirius B, Camelopardians. These guys look like camels. Then, oh my God, I had all of this off pat. There's two ladies who are reptilian. One, Juju, her race, the Farjan from the planet Fargui in Andromeda, the Andromeda Galaxy. She says she's the only representative of her race here, but she was asked to do this, and you know, she yeah, I'm not sure how happy she is with her choices.
But see, that's really interesting, because with my clients, I have met ones that came here to do fact finding.
Okay.
You know, and now they came with this mission, and again, I come back to that. I don't know that they would find genetic stuff, but it was more on a soul level, that their soul chose to incarnate in a human body and have this experience here. So, I mean,
I want to talk to those guys. I want to have that conversation, because I feel like that is why I'm here. That is, I was talking to Juju a few days ago, and I said to her, because all the way through the project, it was triggering all sorts of things in me, and this could be happening for any of the readers. Like I said, I started to get a bit bolder about maybe exploring that a bit, and I said to her, look, are there any people that you would recommend I talk to that are psychic enough to see what that is, what I am? And she said, well, you need to look within. You know, that's where it is. That's where the knowledge is. Talk to 10 different psychics, 10 different answers. So I said, all right, I'll buy that, because I'd always thought the same thing, that if I asked, you know, 10 people, I get 10 answers. Where am I? I'm where I started. So I started to talk about what, you know, how I feel being here, and what my journey's been, and, you know, particularly after the last year. And then there was just this shift of some kind, and it was like someone else was using my mouth as a loudspeaker, and this this line came out clear as a bell: I have the soul of a wanderer. And it came with this massive reverberation in my solar plexus. You know, when you hear something that is just true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like that. Someone used to call it the truth center, the solar plexus, and it was like my solar plexus was a gong that somebody had just bashed, honestly. And if that hadn't happened, I might just think, well, you know, I was just pulling stuff out of thin air. But this week I've been reading Carla Ruckert, her book on wanderers. And there's a thing in the beginning, a questionnaire, like out of 100 points, you know, to see if you have an ET soul. And I had 85 out of 100. And it says, you know, 75 and above, yeah, you very probably, you know, in our considered opinion, would have an ET soul. And I've got a feeling that there are a hell of a lot of people who, if they did that questionnaire, would be there or thereabouts. So yeah, that business of coming here to kind of gather information for years and years and years, since I was a teenager, I wanted to write a novel about ETs that came here trying to understand humans, came here to do a research project on humanity. All my life I've been trying to work out these guys, and I'm still baffled. Doesn't make sense to me, but I have endeavored in all kinds of different ways to find out what's going on. And even I think the research into ETs and hybrids and all the rest of it, I realized after a fairly short period of time that actually it's not really about the ETs. The hybrids are a kind of bridge to the ETs. The ETs are a bridge to everything else. And if we credit what these hybrids say as being true, we have answers to pretty much the top 10 biggest questions humanity's ever thought to ask. And it still feels like that's just the beginning. I'm keen to do a book 2 with these guys, but I think it's going to be a while till I've even formulated big enough questions to ask them. You know what I mean?
That does make sense. So one of the things that I'm very curious about, do these people report, and I'm going to say regular births, they were born in this hospital? I mean, so for example, I'm thinking David Jacobs, material where there are the fetal abstractions, or they take the eggs and they're created on the ships, which would imply that, kind of like in mythology, there is the baby swapping series of legends where they have a baby and then their baby disappears and another baby appears, which to me goes, okay, that's kind of ET sounding, and maybe they just put a hybrid into the crib. But are there, I'm not sure how to pull that together. I know that, and I wrote it down, Charmaine talked about her embryo being modified and then implanted or something like that. So do these people report that they were born normally, or, was there...
I think at
Does that
least,
make sense?
we're all feeling our way through this thing.
Well, it's because it's a really kind of weird topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think 4 of them reported having ET genetics introduced while they were in vitro or in utero. So one of them understands that she is the product of a military project. Another has several theories as to how he was created, and two of them are just really food for thought. One of which is that, so this is Robert Fullington. He first met Jacqueline Smith fairly recently, the last couple of years, as I understand it. And when they met, their jaws basically hit the floor, because they knew that they knew each other from the ships. They had this instant recognition, and they were talking away. They both have mantis DNA. Robert has principally mantis DNA. Jacqueline is the lady who has 7 different frequencies. And as they were talking, they spontaneously did this mantis bow, which freaked them out, apparently, because it's not something you can do with regular people. It just happened, and they were able to kind of speak to each other in the different languages that they have. Now, Robert...
that would be something I would want to film.
Oh, boy. Yeah, they're hanging out right now. Oh, man, it kills me that I can't be at the conference. Oh, I'd love to see all that unfolding. But Robert was talking to, I think, another starseed or hybrid. I think a hybrid, he said, who was more advanced than he was in their understanding. And that guy said to Robert, if you know Jacqueline from the ships and she is X number of years older than you, in human form, it is entirely possible that you have some of her DNA, and that you're effectively a second generation hybrid. And I think I mentioned this in an article or an interview or something somewhere, and Jacqueline hadn't heard that before. They hadn't talked, so she was sent me this email like, "WTF?" question mark. Robert could be my son. What? So this project's had a few of those moments, and also said that somebody had said to him, "Well, look, the mantis beings, they're basically immortal. The ones that he's connected to, they don't really die in the way that we understand. So it is possible that he created himself, because they can just select a new form as required." So everybody's got their own take on this. There's certainly overlaps. There is a fairly detailed description in the book from Vanessa Lamorte of this process spinning, which off the top of my head I couldn't do justice to at all. But basically, when new hybrids are being created on the ships, they start off with this kind of essence, this unit of kind of pure gold plasma, and they infuse it with if you like, the physical and metaphysical material from the various parents, and there can be, I'm not sure if there's an upper limit to how many people can chip in, energy, galactic imprints, I think she called them, DNA, etc., to this ball of plasma, and then it goes through a process called spinning, what she called spinning, and this thing basically spins this kind of toroidal field to blend all these different elements, and then it sets up, her terminology was a cell matrix for the body, and then where the soul comes in, I don't know, but at some point then that material exists, which can then, I guess, be transferred to a woman down here, and the being can incarnate. So I feel like these guys have all kinds of ways of going at it.
Well, you're explaining all this stuff, and so in my mind, and my guides they have a very good sense of humor. So they're like, they're mixing all this stuff up, and then they're going to like put it in the oven, and then you go, oh, yeah. And then they implant it in the woman. I'm like, oh, I guess they did put it in the oven.
Yeah.
Funny. So you interviewed 8 individuals. Do you think that there are more? Have you come upon more people who identify themselves as hybrids?
Before, during, and after, in fact. We know of others that, did not want to participate, but, we felt like 8 was going to do it. Then, the strangest thing, I hadn't put anything at all on Facebook about this, nothing, until the book was literally maybe a week away or something like that, maybe when it was published. So I said nothing to nobody. Yet I was getting total random strangers emailing me and say, "What do you think about hybrids?" I'm a hybrid. I'm like, okay, pleased to meet you. And, after a while, we'd done enough interviews and I was getting a feel for the hybrid state of being, so I'd know what questions to ask them. And I have no reason to think that they were not as legit as these guys, no more, no less. And
did you find a level of consistency in their stories, even though they had their own spins? In the big picture, did you find a level of consistency? And if so, What was that?
Well, I think it is that sense of always difficult childhoods, knowing they were different, seeing craft, energies, spirits, visitations, presences, call it what you will, and then down the line, some moment of confirmation, some experience, some message, some vision, something that said you are a hybrid. And it is common to these people that they just think, oh, thank God, I'm not crazy. I knew it. I knew it. I knew I wasn't crazy. Oh my God, that just really, it came across so strongly that these people have a genuine sense of relief. But for a regular human, if some voice out of the blue, some 7-foot mantis shows up in the bedroom and said, you're a hybrid, well, you're going to be on some pretty serious medication within 24 hours. I mean, you're not going to be, oh, thank God. So we can, at the very least, say that is common to them. That sense of relief, that sense of acceptance, that sense of, now I can get on with it. But Robert, and you should talk to this guy at some point, he has such an interesting take on all of this, that he said that's the first bit, that you start off with this real sense of relief of understanding what you are, getting comfortable with that, and that's kind of
now the door's open.
Yeah, but that's the kind of good bit, the initial, you're kind of on an upswing, and then he said you go into what he calls the non-existent zone, and experience the separation effect, where you will be talking to somebody and saying, and the way he described it in the interview, I so wish I could have put verbatim the way he actually described these things, but you got to kind of clean it up a bit for the book, But he was saying, you'll be talking to some person and say, I saw a UFO. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then you will say, I saw an ET. And he said, even in the UFO community, people are like, there's no way you met an ET. What are you talking about? You don't meet ET. What? And then you go into, I'm part ET, and basically the belief just drops lower and lower. And this separation effect begins, in which the more intense the experience, the more people tune out, the more they back off. People are happy to say you saw a light in the sky, something that's out there, that's fairly safe. It's out there. Well, it could have been a plane, though. I mean, that could have been anything. But when someone is standing in front of you and saying, I'm part ET, yeah, I'm part mantis, and he does this crazy thing with his wrists where they're double jointed, and yeah, it's and then they start to tell you about the stories, the experiences they've had, and hear some of the funniest. I mean, he's a very funny storyteller without trying, but oh my God, he was telling me about this race that he calls the Goloids. He said, I don't know what they call themselves, but that's what they call them. And they'd come to him. I can't remember the detail of the story terribly well, but they'd come to him in the night or something, or was it while they were doing a medical examination or something, and then he was reaching out for some reason, and he put his finger in one of their mouths by mistake, and he was just describing in great detail what their mouths are like, what their skin is like. And all of the hybrids will go to a level of detail which, I mean, people generally don't when they're lying. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When they're making stuff up, it isn't the same deal. And when you have things like the separation effect, the non-existent zone, that stuff does not come out of thin air. That stuff is the product of someone spending a long time thinking about this stuff. You know what I mean?
And not being able to talk about it. I mean, it's just recently with work like Barbara's and Denise Stoner and Mary Rodwell and those type of people, that experiencers are being able to start to come forward and not feel alienated.
Literally, Barbara's lectures and her manner in talking about this stuff. I mean, she is talking about the sexual nuts and bolts of abduction and the creation of hybrids in a way that you or I might talk about interior decorating. I mean, I couldn't believe it when I was watching her lectures, because I'd see a lot of people giving lectures, presentations, researchers, experiencers, whistleblowers. They have their style, they have their way of presenting, and most of these guys are very watchable. I mean, there's the reason that they do conference after conference. But Barbara's take on it, I mean, it just cracked me up. You know, it's my partner Louise is just as into this stuff as I am, and because she was with me when we had that sighting, and has also always been into this subject. So we would be watching all this stuff, and then I'd discover something new, I'd send it to her, and vice versa. Watching Barbara's lectures, oh my God, it's a stitch. I mean, this kind of, you know, in the nicest possible way, this little old lady who a friend of mine said, you know, she looks like a blue rinse Republican, and yet listen to what she is saying. And I said, well, that's kind of the thing of it. And Mary Rodwell is the same. These people look like they could be your mother, your grandmother, you know, that they're just going to bring out tea and brownies. Their way of going at this is so grounded, even though if you talk to them, you get where they're really at, how they really are, how they really think about these things. But they have a way of presenting this which I feel is incredibly important for allowing anyone and everyone to access this in a safe way. There's something in their nature, in their manner, which means that it never comes across as forced or you know, like they've decided this is my strategy. You know, they're just delivering it in a very natural way. And to me, I think it gives more people a way in. Barbara said part of her mission is to normalize this subject, is to say, well, like any other thing, I mean, she's been a marriage counselor for decades. She has kind of seen it all. And when you talk to her about her actual life experiences, oh my God, yeah, she's really seen it all.
Well, we're getting very close on time, and I want to ask this one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there is something going on in society, you know, or with the extraterrestrials, that this deeper understanding of who, you know, they're the hybrids. And so this recollection of who they are is obviously coming to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that this is a new phenomena and working to take us to a different level? Do you think that there have been individuals who have had this recollection and just put it in the closet? Any thoughts on that? You know, why this material is coming forward at this point in time?
Well, we can certainly say that our planet, life on this planet, is deeply imperiled. Probably no surprise that, the Roswell crash happened where it did at the time it did. All of those, connections with atomic weapons. I was, for a number of years, a professional environmentalist before doing all of this work. So it's evident that we are in an extremely perilous situation for so many reasons, in so many ways. And I don't think it's any kind of accident that all of this is happening now. Mary Rodwell is in the process of finishing her book on star children. And I mean, if you think the material on hybrids is mind-blowing, wait till you read that book. I mean, it's extraordinary. The more people I talk to of late in and around ufology, the more, or particularly those who have been working in ufology, researching, teaching for a long time, there is certainly, I think, a growing consensus around the kind of spirituality of this subject. And I feel that this is all connected, that there is an awakening that is going on this planet at this time. I mean, we haven't even, God, we need like a second hour just to get into what the hybrids are here to do, this whole business of ascension. I mean, in a couple of sentences, ascension is the process of spiritual evolution. And it seems like the hybrids are being created by ETs coming here almost as cosmic missionaries, that they value spiritual evolution and want to help others achieve it. And so they can't just land here, blow away our free will and just blow our minds and say, well, here's how it is. Here's how things are structured.
You will meditate.
Yeah, and you're going to stop freaking out about the next Samsung or Apple phone. Those things are genuinely unimportant. The action is elsewhere. They're not going to do that. Although I feel like at some point they might have to step it up. I mean, the hybrid strategy, if you wanted to call it that, is a long-term strategy. And I don't see that we have that much time to just keep incarnating generation after generation. I feel like we actually have to massively reorient human consciousness in like the next 6 months. We actually don't have the luxury of time. So that's why, I'm happy to do this work. Barbara, I know, feels just the same, in terms of trying to bring this information out and allow it to have some kind of impact. And having 6 of them join her on stage in about half an hour's time, in Arizona
is powerful.
I feel like it's really all part of this. It's about saying, no, this thing is real, it's here, and it's here for a reason. And rather than get hung up on hybrids, on DNA, even on ETs, I feel like we have to get into the message of what this is really all about and actually personally, collectively evolve.
Well, on that note, we're going to call this a show. This has been so interesting, and maybe we need to do a second show about the spirituality part and the whole ascension thing, because I think that would be really interesting.
And you should definitely talk to some of the hybrids themselves.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll make that happen.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I know they'd be up for it. It's part of the mission.
Okay. That is Miguel Mendoza. His book is Meet the Hybrids. Very interesting read. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. You've been watching Just Energy TV. To find out more about this show or to see other episodes, please go to justenergyradio.com.